Generative AI is the buzz right now. This technology is really disruptive, and a lot of seasoned players in the market are very keen to adopt it. Different and large enterprises are trying to come up with an enterprise-wide strategy how to handle generative AI and bake it within their ecosystem. Tons of different kind of use cases that can be solved. In this video, what I want to do is deep dive into what are the future potentials and prospects of generative AI from a consulting lens. I'm going to take two reports from super nice consulting companies, Deloitte and Implement Consulting Group. Both are open material which I've just found on the internet, and we'll take a deep dive into it. So welcome back to the channel. This is Akarsh. You're watching Cafe IO. If you have not subscribed, please do subscribe. Share my video. I frequently talk about generative AI, software architecture, technology, and building using tech to solve problems. Two videos every Tuesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. in the morning. All right. So this article is 8 trends of generative AI, and what they have done is they've really summed it up nicely into different smaller areas. So there's bigger and better, which is talking about larger LLMs, smaller and cheaper, smaller, and we'll take a deep dive into all of this. So the first impact that's rightfully seen is the impact on productivity. So there's studies in productivity that there is a potential upside to it, probably 32%, and studies in quality 18%. However, what people will understand is there will be a new normal coming out, which is fundamentally accepting generative AI within their day-to-day life of productivity. Now, it could come in the form of copilots, productivity tools, search assistants, chatbots, even day-to-day stuff like generating code and generating unit test cases for developers. Copilots in everything. And if you just do a Google search on Copilot, maybe I will do that. You will get Microsoft Copilot, GitHub Copilot, again Microsoft, some other Copilot. So tons of Copilots like Microsoft CNBC Copilot. Everybody has their Copilot. If you go to Google, they'll have their Copilot. SAP has it. ServiceNow has it. Each of them are calling it differently, but there are copilots coming out, and what copilots are is essentially trying to automate a business workflow or augment the life of a certain knowledge worker or an analyst and something like that. So that's what copilots are. And essentially there's a huge business around, lots of startups are playing in the space, creating new copilots which could help out people. So that's essentially copilots, and it's eventually on the rise. What I think about this space is that there will be a convergence after a while, that once they'll probably branch out into different smaller copilots. Maybe it makes sense from a business sense now, but ideally I think they should just merge. Like, I really don't understand why Microsoft has so many of them. The third thing which will grow up and evolve, which rightfully so, should be the regulation. So regulatory is really critical in this area. The systems the AI systems are receiving a lot of information from people directly, and there's fundamentally a lack of general framework which can assess the risks around this, can penalize the setup correctly, and whatnot. LLM ops is a very, very evolving field. However, this space is going to evolve much more further. And I think with generative AI, the AI ethics conversation will also be on the rise, because everybody has talked about AI ethics for a while, but I think it's just still something which has been in flux. The fourth is modality. LLMs were large language models, essentially text based, but now I think people are trying to with Sola, and I did a video sometime back about Sola. I'll put the link somewhere above, from OpenAI, and it's already doing great stuff with DALI and the image generation capabilities. And sound is almost converted into text, and it's essentially a text problem. So you can have an input sequence of text, sound, which is audio, or an image or a video. And then you'll have some sort of transformer architecture which could do different sorts of decoding. Now, this is set to evolve, and the capabilities around image and video will grow better and better with time, as is expected. However, it's still at a very early stage. The fifth is rise of agents. Now, agents are smaller systems which can automate some business tasks, while co-pilots augment the life of a developer or an analyst or a person. Agents can perform real actions like, sending invoices, automating transcripts. For example, I want to, and I do this pretty frequently. I speak about something, I want it to be recorded, want it to be transcribed, and I want it to be formatted in three different ways. One could be a Twitter tweet, second could be a blog post, and the third could be just a summary of it and saved it into a certain place. And this is a very simple example of a workflow which you can give it to an agent and your life is sorted. Tons of YouTube videos around it. Bigger and better, and this is interestingly a very very winner takes it all conversation. There's just Google, OpenAI, and open source in the play right now. AWS hasn't ventured in this space. Microsoft, with its partnership of OpenAI, is just very happy there. And then there's other open source like Mistral and whatnot. So we started with GPT-2, 5, and then the real, search started with ChatGPT, which was I think 3.5 or 3. And now we have 4, 4 Turbo, Gemini, Gemini Pro, and we should very soon look at Gemini Ultra and GPT-5. So the scale log is going to be harder, but the capabilities of the models would also be in smaller increments, arguably. It's very debatable how much of a capability increase can the model get, because these models are already doing so good. So a very very interesting space to watch out. Another different segment is, while there's large language models, people are really getting happy with smaller language models, and as the smaller models are used, the cost of consumption is cheaper, which makes sense for most businesses, because every time you hit such a large language model, you are incurring so much cost. So interesting trend to watch out. And then the compound effects, right? As you see the adoption of this space, there'll be a more widespread impact because of these things. So we are still in level 1 impact. We are probably to see the level 2 and level 3 impacts in different business categories and segments. Maybe it could enter into an ERP automation and augment certain critical areas. Maybe in finance, there's so much to do. So tons of different areas to explore with generative AI. All right. So that's from a conversation of where generative AI has headed. I also want to just quickly get into the Deloitte report and talk about what they have as key findings. And this is a very, very interesting article which I really want to share. Now, if you still see, this 62% of people are excited about it, 46% are fascinated. So there's some sort of an overlap happening there. But there's a large range of strong emotions at play about generative AI. What, when it is likely to transform in another, 1 to 3 years is where 48% of people think, and some are 20% is maybe beyond 3 years. Interestingly, only 1% of enterprises, as per Deloitte, think that they will never transform, which is, a really, really interesting thing to adopt. So 1 to 3 and beyond is where the implementation phases would start and the democratization would start. Self-assessed expertise. I think the expertise is also gaining a lot of question, and that's primarily because of that most of these organizations are implementing on top of LLMs. They're not in the space of building LLMs, which has to be understood. The implementing or leveraging and building apps using LLMs, the typical RAG architecture, or maybe a more advanced fine-tuning conversation, or the agent conversation using more popular frameworks like LangChain and Llama Index and all those stuff. uh, they are not fundamentally very deeply challenging. I would argue that in most cases they are actually easier than building a traditional AI system where you're building some sort of a forecasting use cases or a classification use case, etc. So generative AI isn't very complex from an application perspective. However, there are some areas like validation and verification which could get really, really complex. uh, Expertise is also going to drive adoption. I think there's just more numbers around it. Now, the benefits, the most two, the two critical benefits that Deloitte thinks will be 56% improve efficiency and productivity, 35% reduction in cost, and then improvements over product and innovation is another smaller chunk of percentage. So there's a funneling happening there, but productivity and efficiency is right now the key driver around it, which is what I started the conversation with. Uh, yeah, 91% think it will increase. And then this is a very interesting slide, which is level of generative AI expertise and adoption. And this is generative AI adopted in different segments or categories. So I'll want to take a pause here, and there's more deeper arguments. I'll encourage you guys to read this. I'll put the link within the description. And with that, the question that I want to leave you guys with it: have you started using generative AI? If not, what are you waiting for? All right. If you like this conversation, please subscribe. Bye bye.